What next for Togo, Kenya, and other African countries caught in the storm of protest? A tide of discontent is rising across Africa. From the streets of Nairobi, Kenya, in Eastern Africa, to the streets of Lomé, Togo, in Western Africa. This generation of Africans is awakening. Their voice is a chorus of frustration against the status quo. But as the embers of protest glow, a crucial question hangs in the air, one that will define the continent's future. What next? These two comments to my last video on Togo attempt to answer this question. The comments come from two Africans who both care deeply for Africa. Between these two remarks lies the essence of Africa's dilemma. The first reflects the paralysis of fear, the fear of chaos, of instability, of the unknown. It is a fear that after the dictator falls, the people will be left with a vacuum. One that history tells us can easily be filled by another tyrant. The second comment, however, cries out from the belly of the beast, where oppression has robbed people of dignity so thoroughly that even muddy water tastes like salvation. It is a voice of millions across the continent who would rather face uncertainty than continue wallowing in the certainty of daily suffering. But what lies beyond the chants, the placards, and the tear gas? What happens after the crowds disperse? And the dictator, if it does fall, is no longer there to blame.
أيها المواطنون في هذه الظروف العصيبة.
In these difficult circumstances that the country is passing through, President Mohamed Hosni Mubarak has decided to step down from his post as President of the Republic
تخليه عن منصب رئيس الجمهورية
and has empowered the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces to manage the affairs of the country.
المسلحة.
We must remember the Arab Spring. Tunisia, Egypt, and Libya each saw extraordinary bravery as people rose to unseat entrenched regimes. Yet in the years that followed, many of these countries spiraled into fresh autocracies or civil wars. The protesters brought down individuals, yes, but not the structures that produced these individuals. Burkina Faso too in 2011 erupted in nationwide protests against Blaise Compaoré. But what followed? 3 more years of Blaise Compaoré until 2014 when the people finally toppled him. Unfortunately, what followed was a revolving door of military and civilian leaders with no fundamental transformation. It took the Traoré-led change of guard of September 2022 to finally give the people some hope. It is within this sobering context of uprisings that Kenya's Senator Okiya Mtata offered a profound reminder. Uprisings are spontaneous and short-lived. Revolutions, on the other hand, are organized and sustained. They deliver lasting systemic change. Herein lies the crux. Spontaneous uprisings are emotional, visceral, reactions to pain and injustice, justified. They shock the system. But revolutions require patience. They demand vision. They are cultivated in the minds of people, both before and after the street protests. Uprisings say, we want him gone. Revolutions say, we want this to be born. Togo, Kenya, and every African nation in the throes of protest must now undergo this metamorphosis, from the fire of protests to the furnace of revolution. We must reimagine an African aflame, not with hero worship, but with vision worship. This is a continent that has too often placed its hopes in charismatic messiahs, figures who, once embraced by the masses, become drunk on the very power that they were meant to distribute. But Africa can no longer afford the Messiah model, Messiah complex. It must now build a movement model, a governance culture rooted in shared vision and collective ownership. What if our Northern Star was not a man, but a mission? Imagine an Africa where leadership is not the monopoly of a single figure, but the stewardship of many. A captain or a council of captains who emerge from the people, not to impose their will, but to carry out the people's dream, the people's vision. Here, power is not something to be seized, but something to be entrusted and constantly held accountable. In such a model, politics ceases to be a game of thrones and becomes a canvas of purpose. The vision comes first, the movement comes second, the leader comes third, last. This is how Africa must now move forward, from street power to political power, from protests that erupt to revolutions that endure, from loud anger to strategic ambition, from burning effigies to building institutions. The people must keep their rage, but give it roots. They must keep their courage, but give it compass. They must keep their momentum, but give it meaning. Embedded into the revolution must be structured purpose and visionary leadership, not just personality cuts. It is no longer enough to tear down the palace. We must now build the republic. We must build Africa. Community by community, country by country, we must now build Africa.